12 anni fa sono stato qui con Paolo Verzi per il mio primo event in Italia, questo palco, e sto tornando. Growing up American at the end of America. The theme for this lecture series is growing up. What it is like to turn 18, as this remarkable institution itself is doing this year. 18, the moment we pivot from childhood to maturity. It is the year we, in America at least, get to do all sorts of things for the first time, like vote and drive and smoke, and when I was 18 at least, drink alcohol. Back then, we also dreaded turning 18 because it meant we could be sent to Vietnam. And it wasn't just being sent to Vietnam that made coming of age in America different from elsewhere. America is the country where the whole concept of the teenager was born in the 1950s. The divide between generations has always been a little wider there than in other countries. Americans have historically been a future-facing people, so it is not surprising that its young should hold their elders in particular disdain. I certainly know this from my experience. My mother was the child of Greek immigrants, her parents emigrating from a small village, Ohorio, where the things have remained basically the same since the time of Socrates. Even after her family relocated to the United States, there was a sense that a young person's life was basically a recreation of his ancestors. You went to the same church, made the same food, named your children for the same saints. Generations were locked in an endless cycle of tradition. But all that changed with us. My very American siblings and I had absolutely no intention of recreating anybody's life, especially that of our ancestors. We did not learn Greek or join the Orthodox Church or marry Greek girls. We were going to do our own thing. We were not alone in this break from tradition. Every assimilated American generation has seen itself as different from preceding ones, different and better. The nation's young have always believed that they possess knowledge and aspirations that their parents could never understand. In America, turning 18 means creating the world anew. As we all know, this belief was especially profound in the 1960s when the young were engaged in open rebellion against their parents, opening the famous generation gap. But this divide has always existed in the United States. Gertrude Stein spoke of the lost generation following the First World War, one whose faith in the old truths was badly shaken by the slaughter of the European battlefields. This led to the excesses, experimentalism, and spiritual malaise of the 1920s. A century earlier, the generation of Emerson, Thoreau, and Nathaniel Hawthorne broke radically with the puritanical past of their parents and grandparents. Although this ethos has been present since the days of the American Revolution, it became even more deeply ingrained in the American psyche in the years following World War II, when the nation became a superpower. At its core was a faith invoked by the continent's Puritan colonizers that America was the city on the hill. Even during the tempestuous 1960s, most of those opposing the war in Vietnam and the country's appalling civil rights record did so in the belief that America wasn't living up to its exceptional ideals. Constant refrains of the era were that this is not who we are, and we are better than this. Optimism and pride lay beneath America's forays into self-criticism. We're the world's leaders, the thought was. We're the future. We're number one. Let's act like it. But now, with the advent of Gen Z, people born between 1997 and 2012, and their successors, Gen Alpha, this sense of uniqueness and privilege is vanishing. Turning 18 has changed for Americans. Oh, the rebelliousness is still there, the sense of distinction, but it is no longer supported by the confidence in the superiority of an American identity or an American future. In fact, to my eyes at least, Gen Z's revolt against millennials and boomers and everyone else who came before stems from the understanding that the days of an America triumphant are coming to a radical and speedy end. I like writing about 18-year-olds. My fiction is full of them. My novels are like an American high school with cool kids and jocks, mean girls and nerds, and beleaguered teachers like me. Given that, I'd like to examine the three generations of 18-year-olds I've created in my novels. Looking back, I see that they are quite distinct from each other, distinctions that trace a profound shift in the American psyche. My first fictional specimen is Teddy Swope, the catalyst of the multiple tragedies at the heart of the new city. The novel is set in 1973, which means that Teddy is a baby boomer, born in 1955 at the pinnacle of America's post-war supremacy. He is verbally aggressive and emotionally stunted. He has a complicated relationship with Black people, one that involves both idealization and exploitation. He doesn't let little things like law, morality, or the feelings of others get in his way. He is, in other words, an American of the Cold War era. For Teddy, being 18 means he stands on the cusp of a limitless future. Sure, America has been rattled. It has lost the war in Vietnam, its president is enmeshed in scandal, and three of its most charismatic leaders have been gunned down in the last 10 years. Its big cities smolder from race riots. Gasoline is in short supply due to the OPEC embargo. And yet, and I remember this because I was there, not yet 18, but still paying attention, no one doubted the endurance of American supremacy. America was coming out of a series of catastrophes, and yet nothing felt catastrophic. Our national arrogance was such that nothing could dent our core belief that our nation was number one. The future still belonged to us. We need only live up to our ideals to prevail. We had the nuclear bombs and Wall Street and Hollywood. We'd be back. Fast forward 28 years later, it's the spring of 2001. America is just a few months away from an attack that will shake its foundations. This is the time in which my novel, Human Capital, was set. The novel's action takes place in the affluent Connecticut suburb, home to Tom Wolfe's Masters of the Universe. While not the novel's main character, perhaps its most representative one is Jamie Manning, the 18-year-old son of a fabulously wealthy hedge fund manager. When Jamie's high-powered car is involved in a hit-and-run accident that kills a local man, his parents use their immense wealth to try to shield him from justice, just as a medieval merchant might use his wealth to buy an indulgence that admits sinners to heaven. Jamie and his family understand that what makes America exceptional is money. The notion that America is morally superior may be passé, but Jamie and his parents, his peers, have no doubt that it is tops of the world when it comes to buying power. Money, capital, has become the source of American power and prestige, rather than fuzzy notions of freedom and equality. It is the America of Reagan and Bill Clinton, in which the word wealth no longer needs to be qualified by terms like financial or monetary, as if there could not be a wealth of affection or sympathy or justice or imagination. Human Capital's epilogue is set a few months after the attacks of 9/11. It was as if the falling towers opened a crack in the country, which continues to grow to this day. The first symptom of this rupture was the criminal destruction of Iraq, an enterprise whose bloody stupidity and cruelty marked the end of American exceptionalism, not just throughout the world, but also at home. The core belief that America was a city on a hill became increasingly absent from a growing number of young Americans. And then came the economic meltdown of 2008, in which the predations of the big banks were made painfully obvious. Capitalism was shown to have entered a new phase, one in which general prosperity was no longer the aim, but rather theft and corruption on the part of a sociopathic few, one of whom turns out to be Jamie Manning's father, whose great wealth comes from having bet on the ruin of his country. It was at this time that presidential candidate Barack Obama suggested that American exceptionalism was no different from British or Greek exceptionalism. To aging baby boomers, He might as well have burned the American flag while rapping a hip-hop version of the Internazionale. But America's young understood what he was saying. They turned out to vote for him in record numbers, not once, but twice. In 2008, the candidate who claimed that our exceptionalism is not exceptional at all was elected by landslides. Which leads me to the final set of characters I'd like to discuss, the ones who embody the generation I reference in the title of this talk, those coming of age at the end of America, which I am unhappy to report is currently energetically underway. I need hardly tell you. They populate my novel I figli di silenzio, or Locust Lane in America, but I like I figli di silenzio. The novel takes place one generation after the events of human capital. The setting is once again an affluent East Coast suburb. 4 kids are partying in a mansion. One of them turns up dead, and the other 3 aren't talking. They claim to have seen nothing, to know nothing about the fate of the murdered girl. They are the children of silence. It is left to their parents to figure out the truth. The whole story is told through the eyes of the adults who are trying to get the kids to talk. I did this for both artistic and personal reasons. Although I'm continually exposed to young Americans as a teacher and a father, their inner workings are becoming increasingly obscure to me, to say the least. I find it difficult to fully imagine what the terrible events of the past 25 years have done to them. But I can guess. Thinking, compassionate members of Gen Z see American predominance, or what remains of it, as based upon brute power and the exploitation it allows. The analogy with Israel must unfortunately now raise its ugly head. Nations that declare themselves exceptional have a consistent habit of brutalizing others. The example of 19th century Great Britain and of imperial Rome also suggests themselves. Gen Zers have little hope of owning property, certainly not the big homes their grandparents were able to buy so cheaply. The prospect of finding a meaningful career is becoming more and more difficult in an economy dominated by gig jobs and artificial intelligence. These are the children of climate change, 9/11, Trump, Black Lives Matter, and COVID. The idea that the nation in which they live is superior to others, a place that other people aspire to emulate, is no longer a core belief. It's actually kind of laughable when you think about it. Many of my peers were shocked by the outpouring of sympathy and even love for Luigi Mangione after he gunned down an insurance company CEO a few months ago. But I think I understand it. His young supporters see his actions as a ritual enactment of their urge to sever themselves radically and absolutely from a system that has created such rank injustice and insecurity. And who better represents that past, that ugly past, than a man enriching himself on the misery and ill health of others? Because as shell-shocked as young Americans might be, they are still young. Like previous generations, they are intent on proving themselves radically different than their parents. They possess their own slang, their own music, their own means of courtship, swipe right, their own contempt for the way their parents did things. One needs only examine the phrase, "okay, boomer," which I'll explain later if you don't know it. One need only examine the phrase, "okay, boomer," to understand this dismissal of ideas and traditions that are seen as dead on arrival. But there is something missing from Gen Z's rebelliousness. In the recent eruptions against police brutality, climate change, and the US government's support of Israel's systematic destruction of the Palestinians, one would have to strain very hard to hear any of the protesters claim that America is a great country that is simply making mistakes. In fact, their message seems to be that American crimes, failures, and excesses are exactly what the country has become at its core. Even those most curious of creatures, young people who support Trump and his neo-fascist MAGA movement, do so out of a nihilism that was not present in their Reaganite or Nixonian predecessors. Although they parrot their master's cry to make America great again, They have no idea what form this greatness might take. Free speech, civil rights, grassroots democracy, trade unionism, all the important aspirations of the American rebellion are just liberal nonsense to these ahistorical idiots. Wait, where was I? Oh, ahistorical idiots. Theirs is simply a world of absences. No dark-skinned immigrants, no trans people, no Taylor Swift, or rainbow flags, or critical race theory. The planet need only be turned into a Trump resort, and all will be well. At heart, it is a view every bit as devoid of hope as that of their progressive counterparts. Indeed, the loss of faith has led to a profound lack of curiosity about America's cultural heritage among Gen Zers on both sides of the nation's ever-widening political divide. In the 60s, a young person fighting the injustices of Vietnam and Birmingham would, quote, howl in The Grapes of Wrath and Walden. They might disdain their elders, but they also believed that knowing the past was a way of striking a bargain with the future. This belief is no longer commonplace among young Americans. As any teacher will tell you, Gen Z's willful indifference to their nation's past in America is breathtaking. It's not that they're unintelligent, far from it. Rather, they are creating their own vocabulary, their own culture and technology to express this new American nihilism, a language and means of communicating that allows them to live in a sort of perpetual present. This eternal now is reflected in the generation's technology. The introduction of the iPhone in 2007 and ChatGPT in 2022 has changed the way young brains are formed. The Oxford University Press recently named the term brain rot their 2024 word of the year. According to the OUP, brain rot is defined as, quote, the deterioration of a person's mental or intellectual state, especially viewed as a result of overconsumption of online content considered trivial or unchallenging. Yes, these are dark days. It's the end of something big. America, the city on the hill. But it's happening. After all, it's hard to argue that a system that elects Donald Trump twice, that turns a blind eye to a climate that is clearly dying, is not broken beyond despair. And yet, I refuse to give up hope. Maybe this is just the doting father in me, the professor who takes strengths from his students. But maybe this loss of faith in American exceptionalism will lead to something better. Today's American youth may be severing their links to the past, and yet this makes them no less human. They feel love and pity and outrage and loyalty. Maybe brain rot is really just a brain reboot. The world they will build remains a mystery to their elders and themselves and me. In fact, there is only one thing we can be certain about. It won't look anything like the world of the generations that preceded it. But it would be the height of arrogance to say that this is a bad thing. Maybe severing all links with a dying nation's past is the best way to save it. Thank you.
Steven, grazie. Facciamo un altro applauso, Steven. E desidero ringraziare anche Sara Cuminetti, che ha tradotto il testo che avete tra le mani e che farà l'interprete questa sera. Steven, lo hai accennato tu stesso prima, non è la prima volta che capiti a Torino. Questa è una città che ormai conosci bene. Sei stato qui più di 10 anni fa la prima volta. Era in giuria del Torino Film Festival con Paolo Virzì, che era presidente di quella giuria, e da allora sei tornato tante volte. E nel frattempo ti abbiamo conosciuto, abbiamo letto i tuoi libri, e io ti voglio subito fare una domanda che ci riporta dentro il testo che hai letto, quasi alla fine, al penultimo capitolo, diciamo così. L'ultimo tuo romanzo pubblicato in Italia si intitola I figli del silenzio. e racconta un femminicidio, o meglio le indagini che seguono questo atto brutale e violento. E tu racconti questa vicenda adottando la prospettiva di un coro di adulti, i genitori dei ragazzi coinvolti. E come hai detto tu stesso poco fa, questi genitori non riescono non solo a trovare, come dire, la chiave del mistero, chi è stato, chi è il colpevole, ma si rendono conto, attraverso questa tragedia, di non sapere più nulla dei propri figli. Proprio perché parliamo di questi due temi, l'America e il diventare grande, diventare adulti, perché hai scelto questa prospettiva?
Can you hear me? Okay. One experience I've had as the father of 4 teenagers is how much teenagers love secrets. And I remember this from my own youth, how much you hate to tell your parents anything. So I wanted to write about that. I've always written about kids from the point of view of my memories of being a kid. This is my first book about being the father of a kid, I think. And it occurred to me that desire to write about being the parent of a kid who keeps secrets really lent itself to the mystery format.
Allora, diciamo che io ho l'esperienza personale, l'esperienza di essere papà di 4 bambini che adesso sono diventati poi adolescenti, e in quanto tale vi posso dire che so benissimo che ai teenager, agli adolescenti piace tantissimo avere dei segreti e quindi non dire certe cose ai loro genitori. Mi ricordo quando ero un teenager anch'io facevo la stessa cosa e solo l'idea di dover raccontare tutto ai miei genitori mi dava molto fastidio. Ecco, quindi sapevo che avrei voluto scrivere una cosa proprio di questo tipo, e a differenza del passato, in passato avevo scritto di ragazzi basandomi sui miei ricordi di ragazzo, e invece adesso ho voluto scrivere in maniera diversa. È il primo libro in cui parlo dal punto di vista mio in base alla mia esperienza di papà, e quindi un ruolo diverso. E ho anche pensato che scrivere di giovani, di teenager che hanno dei segreti, sarebbe stato perfetto appunto per una storia in cui c'era un mistero da risolvere.
In addition to that, there was also the feeling I alluded to in my text that there's a kind of despair that expresses itself best in silence. I was a little boy in the 1960s, and not young man in the Black Lives Matter riots, not riots, uprising, whatever you want to call it. They were very different. The protests on campus against Gaza, or in favor of Gaza, are very different from the anti-war protests of the 60s. The earlier ones were kind of general youth uprisings. The current ones are a little more bijou, a little more specialty uprisings. And I think the general response to what's going on is a sort of stunned silence among a lot of young people, a sense of drawing into themselves and their coteries and their worlds. And that's not a criticism. I am not in a position to criticize. I fucked this planet up. My generation did. I'm in no position to criticize anybody. It's just an observation. And so that's kind of why I chose to have them be silent.
Right.
You don't have to say fuck if you don't want to.
I know. Ma cosa mi fa dire? Lo sai, lo fa apposta, ve lo dico. Hai parlato del testo che ho letto prima, effettivamente c'è uno spunto che è venuto fuori, spero lo abbiate colto, che riguarda una sensazione, ovvero il fatto che quando sei disperato, talvolta questa disperazione assoluta si esprime al meglio attraverso il silenzio. È il silenzio che ti permette di dar voce appunto a questa disperazione assoluta. Ora, io vi dicevo prima che appunto ero ragazzo negli anni 60 quando c'erano tutte queste manifestazioni, però insomma forse ero fin troppo giovane per poter partecipare davvero appieno a quello che stava accadendo in America. Lo sapete bene, c'erano tutte queste proteste, anche questi scontri abbastanza violenti. Ovviamente non ero più un ragazzino e non ero tra quei ragazzini che manifestavano per il Black Lives Matter, ad esempio, quindi appunto per i diritti dei neri. Era un periodo completamente diverso. Non sono sicuramente più ragazzino adesso che ci sono i ragazzi giovani che protestano nei campus universitari pro o contro Gaza. Sono delle situazioni molto diverse, questo ovviamente. E se vogliamo, direi che in passato era come se fossero delle espressioni dei sentimenti della gioventù, ma espressioni più generali, se vogliamo, di natura più generale, dei giovani. Adesso le chiamerei espressioni bijou, cioè espressioni un pochino più specialistiche, diciamo. Cioè quando c'è una manifestazione davvero, magari violenta anche, c'è un motivo molto particolare per quella manifestazione, per quella protesta. E la risposta, la reazione generale è appunto di solito di sgomento e quindi di silenzio. La gente guarda quello che succede, questi giovani guardano quello che succede e restano talmente interdetti perché non capiscono, lo sgomento è l'unica cosa e quindi stanno zitti. Stanno zitti e questo stare zitti li fa ripiegare su se stessi, il che vuol dire che non è che prendono parte e vanno necessariamente per strada a fare chissà che rivolte, che può essere una cosa positiva o negativa. Detto ciò, voglio che sia molto chiaro che io non voglio criticare assolutamente nessuno in questo senso, cioè la loro reazione alla situazione in cui si trovano a vivere è assolutamente legittima, anche perché sono io che ho reso il pianeta questa merda che è diventata adesso e quindi è difficile per me andare poi a puntare il dito contro chi dice qualcosa o fa qualcosa che io non condivido. La reazione molto spesso è il silenzio.
Ascoltandoti parlare mi chiedo se la reazione non sia sempre più spesso il silenzio, perché tutti noi vediamo ridotta la nostra capacità di incidere sulla realtà, di cambiare le cose, no? La nostra agency, per così dire. Queste battaglie sono già state combattute. Abbiamo ottenuto dei diritti, abbiamo ottenuto un avanzamento, eppure ci troviamo al punto di partenza. Nel tuo discorso, nella tua lezione, tornavano spesso due termini in questa contrapposizione tra le generazioni: different and better, diverso e meglio, no? E l'altra cosa che mi è venuta in mente è Paul McCartney, che per carità non è americano, lo so bene, in qualche modo però appartiene alla generazione dei boomer e per tanti anni io l'ho associato a questa canzone dei Beatles che era Getting Better. Non so quanti di voi la ricordino. E lui è come per me il portavoce di un ottimismo di fondo verso il futuro, verso il progresso, verso un miglioramento delle condizioni di tutti. Impegniamoci, studiamo, facciamo il nostro dovere e le cose miglioreranno. Però poi non è stato così.
Exactly. I mean, why the hell are we out fighting for civil rights for black people in 2020? You know, what the fuck are we? What the heck are we doing? There is a weariness. You know, I can't believe we're doing this again. You know, right now in America, black people, queer people, certainly trans people, are being fired from their jobs because of their identity. This is happening, and this happened in the 1950s. And then we fought all these battles Not me, I was 6, but, I was there. Right on. And, we fought and we won. And we won. And then at some point we surrendered. I just don't understand it. And I think, getting better all the time. Yeah, I know the song. Now it's playing in my head. Thanks. But you can't believe that anymore. I mean, Donald Trump, for Christ's sake. I mean, in the 1970s, I lived outside of New York City. He was a joke. It was a punchline. Donald Trump will be president. You want to do that? I can finish? Or? Okay.
You go on.
No. Insomma, I think that there's a lot of weariness in the silence, but also a sense that why do we as young people have to fight this fight that our parents and grandparents fought and won? What's the point? If some rich asshole and Elon Musk are just going to come and take it all away. And I feel that way, and I'm not young. I'm a boomer, for Christ's sake, I think. If not, I'm close. And so, yeah. And plus, I'm a John Lennon guy. I never liked McCartney. I'm Lennon all the way. He understood.
He understood, ok, good. Che dire, hai ragione, è così, è proprio così la situazione, perché, come dire, diamine, ci ritroviamo qui di nuovo a combattere per dei diritti che in realtà avevamo già ottenuto. Quindi che cosa è successo, mi chiedo io, proprio questa è la cosa assolutamente incredibile. Cosa stiamo facendo? Perché stiamo facendo quello che stiamo facendo oggi se avevamo già vinto ottenuto una serie di conquiste in passato? Fatico veramente a credere che in sostanza ci ritroviamo, appunto, come dicevi tu, da capo, dobbiamo ricominciare da capo. È una cosa che veramente fatico a cabalizzare, per così dire. Pensiamo che in questo momento in America i neri, le persone queer, i trans a maggior ragione, stanno perdendo il lavoro, vengono licenziati a causa della loro identità, che è una cosa assolutamente incredibile da vedere accadere oggi, quando pensiamo che in realtà queste sono delle tematiche che erano state affrontate e superate in un certo senso negli anni 60. Io me lo ricordo perché ero vivo, non perché ero grande, badate, avevo 6 anni all'epoca, non pensiate, non sono così vecchio. Però effettivamente sono delle battaglie che sono già state combattute e che sono state vinte effettivamente. Poi cosa abbiamo fatto dopo che abbiamo vinto? Abbiamo gettato la spugna, in sostanza, ci siamo distratti, qualcosa è successo, ma se vi dovessi dire cosa non lo so, perché anch'io veramente fatico a capire che cosa è successo. La canzone Getting Better All the Time, a parte il fatto, grazie, che adesso continuo a sentirla nella mia testa, certo che me la ricordo, e devo dire che, non so, più ci penso e più non riesco assolutamente a crederci a tutto questo. Quello che vi posso dire è che io vivevo a New York all'epoca e negli anni 70 Trump era veramente lo sfigato degli sfigati, uno che non si filava a nessuno. Ridevano di lui quando si parlava di Trump, mai nessuno avrebbe pensato neanche per un attimo che sarebbe potuto diventare presidente. Insomma, per citare appunto Steven, insomma, è vero che questo silenzio forse è anche espressione di una certa, come dire, stanchezza, forse questo sì, però bisogna anche pensare che questi ragazzi se lo chiederanno magari, ma io devo veramente lottare per delle cose per cui in realtà avevano già lottato i miei genitori, i miei nonni addirittura. Cioè, se io mi ritrovo con uno stronzo arricchito, un Musk della situazione che prende parte, fa quel cavolo che vuole e distrugge la vita a tutti, cioè, cosa ci posso fare? Effettivamente lo capisci perché la pensano in questo modo. E io di nuovo effettivamente non... Lo dico da boomer, sempre che io sia qualificabile come boomer, mi sembra di sì, ma non vorrei dire cavolate. Ecco.
Ti faccio una domanda adesso, come dire, da sceneggiatore. È la stessa domanda che ho rivolto a Francesco Piccolo questo pomeriggio. Io ho la sensazione che se proviamo a osservare il ciclo delle notizie da un po' di distanza e usciamo dai casi quotidiani, dai titoli di notizie della singola giornata, la mia sensazione è che si stiano combattendo tutta una serie di scaramucce che per carità hanno un effetto profondo sulla vita delle persone, ma è un po' come nel Trono di Spade, quando i vari regni si contendono un dominio che però non tiene conto dell'arrivo dei White Walkers, no? Il cambiamento climatico sta già avvenendo e sta per travolgerci tutti. Che tipo di svolta narrativa ti immagini da qui a 4, 5, 10 anni? Da narratore che sei.
Shit. Minchia.
Ha tradotto lui per fortuna.
What did Piccolo say?
Dopo ti dico.
Cosa ha detto Piccolo?
Un amico. Non so. Seriously. I worry. I live near Cape Cod. I don't know if you know Cape Cod. It's a beautiful peninsula in Massachusetts, very famous. A man recently there bought I think it was $8 million house for $300,000. The man was terminally ill. He had cancer. This is a true story. He was able to buy this house for $300,000 for 5% of its value, because within 5 years, the house is going to fall into the sea. But he'll be dead before then. Doesn't have a lot of money, but he's always wanted to live by the sea. That's my answer.
Non so veramente cosa risponderti. Diciamo che sono preoccupato. Provo a spiegarvela così. Io non so se avete presente Cape Cod. Cape Cod è una bellissima penisola che si trova in Massachusetts. E un uomo di recente, questa è una storia vera, ha comprato una casa splendida sul mare, sull'oceano, una casa del valore di $8 milioni per $300.000. Quest'uomo era malato, terminale, aveva un cancro ed è riuscito in qualche modo a comprare questa casa con questa posizione fantastica in questo posto splendido per il 5% del suo valore originale. Perché? Perché tra 5 anni quella casa lì sarà sommersa dall'acqua e quindi il punto qual è? Che lui tra 5 anni non ci sarà più. Non ha tanti soldi, ha sempre amato l'idea di vivere vicino al mare e quindi ti rispondo così.
Con un'immagine. Grande Steven.